She slammed her car door so hard the mirror rattled. "You don't belong here anymore," she yelled, marching straight toward me like she owned the driveway. I hadn't even stepped out of my truck yet. 10 years away, and nothing about her had changed. Same angry face, same sharp voice that made the neighbors peek through their curtains. I climbed down slowly, brushing the dust off my jacket. "Karen, this is still my land," I said, keeping my tone calm. I could feel her eyes scanning the barn behind me, the fields that had gone wild over the years. "Not anymore," she snapped, holding up a paper that looked like it was fresh out of a cheap printer. "The HOA dissolved your claim. You're trespassing." I couldn't help a small laugh. "You mean the HOA that was shut down by the county 8 years ago? You really kept the stationery?" Her cheeks flushed red. She waved the paper again as if it would magically turn real. "Doesn't matter. I'm in charge now. You've got 5 minutes to pack up and leave, or I'll have you arrested." That last part made me pause. Arrested? I knew the sheriff. He'd been my best friend in high school. Karen must have seen my expression because she smirked and took out her phone. "I already called the police. They're on their way." A dusty SUV rolled up not long after. The man who stepped out wore a badge clipped to his belt, but something felt off. His uniform shirt didn't match the county's colors, and his boots were too clean. Karen pointed at me like she just caught a fugitive. "That's him! He's trespassing! Remove him from my property!" I crossed my arms and looked at the so-called cop. "Before you touch me, maybe show me your credentials." He hesitated just long enough for me to know the truth. "Sir, I need you to leave immediately," he barked, trying to sound official. Karen grinned behind him, clearly enjoying herself. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "You sure you want to keep that badge on when the real sheriff shows up?" The man blinked. Karen's grin faltered for a split second. The old oak tree at the edge of the land creaked in the breeze, and for a moment the only sound was the distant hum of crickets. I didn't say anything else, just watched the fake cop shift uncomfortably, already second-guessing the job he'd been paid to do. Karen's voice cracked the silence again. "Don't just stand there! Arrest him!" I smiled faintly, because she had no idea whose land she'd just tried to steal, and who exactly she'd called a trespasser.
Karen folded her arms, tapping her foot like a spoiled kid waiting for candy. The fake cop cleared his throat and tried to step toward me again, but his hand hovered awkwardly over his empty holster. "Sir, don't make this harder than it has to be," he muttered, avoiding eye contact. I tilted my head. "Harder? You're about to step on the wrong side of the law in front of a man who knows every inch of this property. You even know whose badge number that is?" He froze, then quickly looked down at the badge as if seeing it for the first time. Karen didn't notice. She was too busy glaring at me, her voice getting sharper. "You left for 10 years. You abandoned this place. It's basically mine now. I've been taking care of it," she said, gesturing at the field that was clearly overgrown and full of weeds. I laughed under my breath. "Taking care? You mean dumping gravel on my driveway and cutting down my old apple tree?" Her eyes flickered. That tree had been my father's favorite, and seeing its stump made my jaw tighten. "Enough," she snapped. "Officer, remove him before I call backup." I leaned against my truck. "Go ahead, call him. Sheriff Davis will love to hear how you brought a hired actor to my property." In fact, I reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a small folder. "He already signed these 10 years ago. I've been paying taxes on this land the entire time." I handed the papers to the fake cop. He stared at the county seal, then back at me. His face went pale. Karen snatched the papers from his hands, scanned them, and scoffed. "Forgery! I know a forgery when I see one." "Karen," I said slowly, "there's a camera right above that porch light. It's been recording since I got here. Do you really want to keep going?" Her smirk slipped, but she quickly masked it with a louder voice. "Fine. If the cops won't handle you, I'll get the HOA board. You'll regret ever coming back." I stepped forward, lowering my voice so only she could hear. "There is no board. The county shut it down because of you. Remember the lawsuit over the lake access? I still have the court's final order." Her face drained of color for a second before she turned away, muttering something under her breath. The fake cop mumbled, "Ma'am, maybe we should go." Karen whipped around. "No, he's bluffing. He can't prove anything." I tapped the folder against my palm. "Karen, I have proof of everything. And now I also have footage of you trying to evict me with a fake cop. That's 2 crimes in one evening." For the first time since I got there, Karen didn't have a comeback. The fake cop shifted his weight, clearly realizing he was standing on the wrong side of this fight. I could feel the tide turning, but I stayed quiet, letting them both stew in their own panic. Something told me this wasn't over. Karen wasn't the type to walk away without another stunt up her sleeve.
Karen's silence didn't last long. She suddenly spun toward her SUV, slammed the door, and grabbed her phone again. Her voice carried across the yard. "You think you're clever? Fine. Let's see how clever you are when the county inspectors get here. I'll have them condemn that barn before sunset." The fake cop shifted uncomfortably, whispering, "Ma'am, maybe we shouldn't—" "Shut up!" she hissed at him, not even lowering her voice. "You're getting paid to stand there, so stand there." I almost laughed. She had no idea I'd rebuilt the barn 5 years ago. Quietly hired a licensed crew before I left again for work overseas. Every beam was up to code, every nail where it should be. "Karen," I called out, "you might want to check your facts before you call the county. I had it inspected. Twice." She ignored me, still yelling into the phone. I caught bits and pieces. Illegal structures, squatter, safety hazard. The fake cop finally sighed and walked a few steps closer to me, lowering his voice so Karen wouldn't hear. "Look, man, I didn't sign up for this. I thought it was just a property dispute." I raised an eyebrow. "She tell you I'm some stranger who broke in?" He nodded sheepishly. I chuckled. "Figures. You know, impersonating an officer can land you in jail for a while, right?" His face went pale. I didn't mean to impersonate. She told me the badge was a neighborhood security badge." I smirked. "Yeah, the sheriff's gonna love that explanation." Karen's SUV door slammed again. She strutted back with a smug grin. "The inspector's on his way. You're going to regret ever coming back." I kept my voice calm. "You sure about that? Because the last inspector who came here right after the barn was finished was my cousin." Her grin faltered. "Oh, and he's still the county's senior inspector." Karen blinked, realizing too late that her threats were starting to crumble. Before she could reply, a deep rumble echoed down the road. A familiar black pickup truck rolled toward us, dust swirling behind it. I felt a small wave of relief. Karen's expression brightened for a moment. She thought it was more backup for her. But the second the truck stopped and the door opened, her smile froze. Sheriff Davis stepped out, sunglasses glinting in the late afternoon sun. Karen's voice trembled just slightly. "Davis, what are you doing here?" He didn't even look at her. His eyes went straight to me, and a grin spread across his face. "Heard you were finally back, buddy. What's all this chaos on your land?" Karen's jaw clenched. "Your land?" she repeated, her voice cracking. I folded my arms, letting the sheriff's words sink in. The sheriff glanced at the fake cop, then at Karen. "I'm going to need some explanations, starting with why a man wearing a plastic badge is trying to evict the actual owner of this property." Karen's shoulders stiffened. Her plan was unraveling, but I could see in her eyes she wasn't done yet.
Karen's forced smile twitched as she tried to recover. "Sheriff, you don't understand. He abandoned this land for a decade. The HOA had to step in to protect the neighborhood." Davis crossed his arms, unimpressed. "Karen, there hasn't been an HOA here since the county court dissolved it. You remember, after the lawsuit about the lake access?" Her face flushed red, but she kept going. "That was a technicality. The neighbors still recognize me as the acting head of—"
Acting head of what? Davis interrupted. A club that doesn't exist? The fake cop shuffled his feet and tried to inch away, but Davis's sharp gaze caught him. Hold up, partner. Want to explain why you're wearing a badge that belongs to no department in this state? The man froze. Sir, I was just hired to keep the peace. I didn't mean... Karen snapped at him. Don't say a word without my lawyer. I couldn't help but laugh quietly. Your lawyer is not going to save you from impersonation charges. Karen's eyes shot daggers at me. This isn't over. I'll have the county seize the barn, the pond, everything. I know people. Davis raised a hand, cutting her off. Karen, the only people you know right now are me and the county clerk who signed this land over to him years ago. You step 1 foot past that fence again without cause, I'll charge you with trespassing. Her lips parted like she was about to argue again, but no words came out. Just then, another car pulled up, a silver sedan with a county emblem on the side. Karen's eyes lit up. That's the inspector, she exclaimed, clearly hoping for a lifeline. The driver stepped out, adjusted his county badge, and gave me a big smile. Long time no see, cousin, he said, walking straight toward me. Karen's face fell. Cousin? Davis echoed, chuckling. Well, that saves us some paperwork. The inspector turned to Karen. You filed a complaint about code violations? Karen straightened up, trying to sound confident again. Yes, that barn is a hazard. It wasn't built to code. He cut her off with a polite but firm tone. Ma'am, I personally inspected that barn. Twice. It's one of the safest structures in the county. In fact, your SUV is currently parked on the septic reserve zone you were warned about last year. Karen's mouth opened, then closed again. The sheriff and I exchanged a look. The inspector added, If anyone's violating county codes today, it's you, blocking the reserve and impersonating authority. Karen's voice trembled now. You're all against me. This is harassment. Davis sighed. Karen, you've been warned enough times. You need to leave before I make this official. She stood there for a heartbeat. Her eyes darted between us, clearly trying to think of another move. Her knuckles whitened around her car keys. I could see it. She wasn't giving up yet. There was still one last card she thought she could play, and that made me uneasy.
Karen's eyes darted between the sheriff, the inspector, and me, like a trapped animal searching for an escape route. Her lips trembled, but then she forced a brittle smile. Fine, she said in a voice that was too calm to be real. If you all want to gang up on me, go ahead. I'll leave, for now. She turned on her heel and stomped back to her SUV, her heels crunching on the gravel. But before getting in, she spun around again, pointing a sharp finger at me. You think you've won. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Davis sighed and shook his head. Karen, don't make threats you can't back up. I'm already filing a report for today's stunt. Karen just gave a bitter laugh. File all the reports you want. You'll hear from my attorney tonight. She slammed her car door so hard it made the fake cop flinch, then sped off down the dirt road, throwing dust in the air as she disappeared around the bend. For a moment the yard went quiet, except for the soft hum of the sheriff's truck engine. Davis rubbed the back of his neck. She's not going to let this go, he said under his breath. I know, I replied, watching the dust cloud fade. That smile of hers wasn't surrender. That was her loading the next round. The fake cop finally spoke up, his voice small. Sheriff, am I free to go? Davis turned his sharp gaze on him. Not quite. I need your real name and a statement about who hired you and what you were told to do. Then maybe I'll let you leave. The man nodded nervously and started fumbling for his ID. While Davis handled him, my cousin, the inspector, walked up beside me, lowering his voice. You know she's going to try something dirtier next time, right? She won't stick to HOA nonsense anymore. I nodded. Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. We all wrapped up the statements and paperwork as the sun dipped lower, painting the sky orange and purple. Davis climbed back into his truck and gave me a long look before leaving. "Keep your cameras rolling tonight. If she shows up again, I want it on tape." "Will do," I said. By the time I locked up the barn and went inside the farmhouse, the crickets were already chirping. For a while, the silence felt almost peaceful. Almost. An hour later, just as I sat down to eat, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The message was short and chilling. "You should have stayed gone." I stared at the screen, a knot forming in my stomach. I didn't need to guess who had sent it. Somewhere out there in the dark, Karen was already plotting her next move.
I set the phone down slowly, staring at the message glowing on the screen. The farmhouse was quiet, except for the ticking of the old clock on the wall. But suddenly, the silence felt heavy, like the house itself was holding its breath. I grabbed the shotgun I kept by the door, not because I planned to use it, but because I knew Karen. When she made a threat, she usually followed through. I checked the security cameras on my tablet. The driveway was empty, the barn locked tight, the porch lights casting soft halos over the gravel. I sat back down, trying to eat, but the food tasted like dust. My mind kept replaying her last words before she drove off. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." By midnight, I'd almost convinced myself she was bluffing. Then, the motion alert from the front gate pinged on my screen. The feed showed headlights approaching slowly, too slow for someone just passing by. A dark sedan crept up the driveway and stopped just outside the gate. I tapped the screen to zoom in. The driver's window rolled down. A figure leaned out, holding something metallic that glinted under the porch light. I felt my pulse quicken. The car door opened, and two men stepped out, both dressed in black hoodies, both looking around as if to make sure no one was watching. They weren't county officers. I slipped on my jacket, stepped quietly onto the porch, and stayed in the shadows. I could hear faint voices drifting through the night. "Karen said the cameras are fake," one of them muttered. "Yeah, let's just get it done and go," the other replied. They headed toward the barn, carrying a crowbar and what looked like a bolt cutter. I clenched my jaw. Karen wasn't bluffing. She'd sent people to sabotage the place. I stayed low behind the porch rail, grabbed my phone, and hit record on the camera app while dialing the sheriff's personal number. "Davis?" he answered groggily. "Got a situation," I whispered. "Two men at my barn, right now. Looks like they're trying to break in." "Stay put. I'm on my way," he said, his voice instantly alert. I kept the phone line open so he could hear what was happening. The two men were at the barn door now, one jamming the crowbar into the latch. "Man, you sure this guy's gone?" the taller one asked. "Karen said he's probably sleeping. We're just supposed to make it look like an accident." That was all I needed for evidence. I stepped forward just enough for the porch light to hit my face. "You boys lost?" I called out, my voice sharp enough to cut the night air. They froze, startled. One of them dropped the crowbar. "You're making a mistake," I added, keeping my tone even but firm. The shorter one recovered first and sneered. "Mind your business, old man." I raised my phone so they could see the red recording light. "Oh, it's very much my business. You're on live call with the sheriff right now." For a moment, neither of them moved. Then the sound of sirens in the distance broke the standoff. The taller man cursed under his breath. "She said nobody would call the cops." They bolted toward the car, jumped in, and sped off down the driveway, just as Davis's truck lights appeared at the turn. I stayed on the porch until the sheriff pulled up, his headlights washing over the tire tracks. He stepped out, scanned the road, then looked at me. "Guess Karen just raised the stakes," he said grimly. I nodded, replaying the words I'd heard from the intruders. Make it look like an accident. Karen wasn't just trying to scare me anymore. She was trying to ruin everything I'd rebuilt.
Dawn broke with a pale light over the fields, but I didn't feel any relief. The tire marks had hardened into the gravel, a silent reminder that last night had been only the beginning. I walked around the barn, checking for damage. Thankfully, nothing major, just scuffed wood and a bent latch. The sheriff and the county inspector were already there, taking photos and notes. Davis shook his head. She's escalating fast. Sending goons to intimidate you? That's a whole new level. I sighed. Yeah, she's not just a HOA nightmare anymore. She's a criminal now. The inspector adjusted his hat and pointed at the barn. Good thing you've got cameras. If she tries anything else, you'll have everything on tape. I nodded, but my gut told me Karen would try something bolder, something personal, and I wasn't wrong. Just as Davis was finishing up, my phone buzzed again. Another message, this time with a photo, a picture of my mailbox, smashed to pieces, lying in the dirt. I clenched my fists. Karen had sent someone to send me a message, and she wanted me rattled. Davis put a hand on my shoulder. We'll beef up patrols around your property. You're not alone in this, but I'd recommend staying alert. I looked out over the land, the sun glinting off the fields I'd fought so hard to reclaim. Alert doesn't even cover it. She's playing dirty, but I'm not going anywhere. Not this time. The inspector smiled faintly. That barn of yours, built to last. And you know your rights. You've got all the proof you need. She's running out of moves. I let myself breathe a little, but deep down, I knew Karen's next play wouldn't be small. She had pride, obsession, and money behind her, and she never backed down. But I also had the truth, the law, and my family, and that was stronger than her fake authority and empty threats. As we walked back to the farmhouse, a black drone buzzed overhead, a shadow against the morning sun. Karen wasn't done, not by a long shot.
That afternoon, the mail carrier rang the doorbell, holding a small, plain envelope. No return address. I opened it cautiously. Inside was a single note in sharp, messy handwriting. You think you've won? Think again. I see everything. My heart sank. Karen had upgraded. Now she was watching, waiting, sending messages to remind me she wasn't done. I felt a surge of anger, but also clarity. This wasn't just about the land anymore. It was about intimidation, control, and proving she couldn't bully me into leaving. I called Davis. Sheriff, she's escalating. Threats, surveillance. What's our next move? He exhaled sharply. We document everything. Cameras, logs, texts. She wants a reaction. Don't give her one she can exploit. I'll have extra deputies drive by regularly, but be ready. She'll test you again. As we hung up, the old farmhouse seemed quieter than ever, but the tension was electric. I checked the cameras again, everything normal for now, but I knew the moment of calm wouldn't last long. That evening, as the sun dipped low, a familiar sound rattled the gravel, another car approaching the driveway. My muscles tensed. I glanced at the porch camera. Karen's SUV? No. Smaller, nondescript sedan, dark windows. The car slowed, then stopped. Two figures stepped out, moving deliberately toward the barn. I grabbed my phone, dialing the sheriff before even leaving the house. Davis answered immediately. Sheriff, she sent more people, I whispered. Stay inside. Do not engage. I'm on my way, he said firmly. I watched through the window as the intruders approached the barn, unaware of the cameras recording every step. Their shadows stretched long in the twilight, silent and deliberate. I knew then Karen wasn't bluffing. Every move she made from here on would be calculated, dangerous, and personal. But I also knew one thing. She had underestimated me. And this time, I was ready.